Have you had an extraordinary day? We can just say whatever about the weather, right? Because I think a lot of what happens in this life has to do with mindset. And I hope when you look back on this day, you may not remember anything that Dell, Joel, Sally, or I said a year from now. You might not remember it tomorrow. But what I hope you remember is how you felt. And I'm not talking about the weather. I'm talking about the encouragement and the inspiration and the joy and the smiles and the laughter and the connection and the music and the hoop house, right? These things will stay with you. And I don't know about you, but I want more of these extraordinary feelings in my day-to-day, of joy and hope and laughter and smiles no matter the circumstances. And I'm convinced increasingly that what I experience out here or in the day-to-day begins in my thoughts. I've interviewed Dr. Bruce Lipton. I've read Joe Dispenza's books. I believe what the Bible says, as a man thinketh, so he is. And so I'm very convinced that whenever we think something, it's the beginning of turning something into a reality. And where I'm going with this is everything starts with a thought. Like you thought before you came here, what if I should go to Polyface? I wonder if I should go to Polyface. And then you started thinking, oh, I'm going to go to Polyface. And then you bought your ticket, and now you're here. And so it all started with that initial thought. And I want to remind you about the power of thought because it goes from like a vision to an intention to an action. When I was in college, I was with some friends one time, and they were like, let's do something crazy. Let's just scheme is what my friend called it. She's like, let's do some scheming. I was like, okay, I'm in. What do you want to do? She said, let's go to David's Village and Bridal Shop and pretend one of us is getting married and try on dresses. And I was like, yes, I'm in, and I want to be the one. Are you surprised? I want to be the one trying on the dresses. So I grabbed her grandmother's ring, put it on my ring finger, and we went in, and I started trying on all these dresses and saying yes to some and no to others, and we were having so much fun. It wasn't just because I felt like a little girl dressing up. It's because I felt like we were pulling one over on the sales lady. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so funny. You can't just saunter in there and try on dresses, right? So there I was, trying on all these dresses, having a great time, when another friend walked in to the shop. And I was like, oh no, she's gonna blow our cover. We're gonna get in trouble. I'm probably gonna get carted off to jail. I don't know what's gonna happen. I was nervous. I was really nervous. So I thought, okay, I do think kind of fast on my feet sometimes. I was like, I'm going to head her off at the pass. And I ran up to her and I said, Susie, Susie, you'll never guess who I'm marrying, Mitch Gore. And I said that name because it was the one guy who I would probably never marry in a million years. He was like in the friend zone in our Young Life leadership group. He was just a real good guy. And as a matter of fact, every time he walked in the room, we were all like, Mitch, our buddy, Mitch, our buddy. We'd start this little chant. Well, 5 years later, I married Mitch Gore. He really is my buddy for life. He's here, you guys. Give him a wave. I said to my pastor, what if I had said someone else's name? Like, what would have happened? He's like, Hilda, I can't predict. But all I know, you guys, is it was a thought that turned into intention and then an action. Some people say I secretly liked him, not to belabor this point. I did not secretly like him. I don't know. But the funny thing is, when I first met him, this same thing kind of came to pass. Let me explain. So a friend of mine said, Hilda, this guy, Mitch, is coming from Young Life headquarters in Colorado, and he's going to check out our Young Life group. He's going to tell us if we're doing a good job or whatever. So, talk to him, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, hey, I met him. I was like, hey, Mitch, I heard you came from, well, I didn't say all this stuff. But I just said, hey, I'm doing the talk tonight. Tell me what you think. He gave it the thumbs up. And then he came back another week to our club gathering with the teenagers. And then he came back a third week. And I said, well, when are you going back to Colorado? And he's like, what do you mean? I said, well, aren't you on Young Life staff? Didn't you come from Colorado? He's like, no, I work construction around the corner. My friend lied to me because he wanted me to be really friendly to Mitch. But the funny thing is, you guys, years later, Mitch did go on Young Life staff. So I'm bringing this up because in my life, there have been a lot of these serendipity moments, probably in your life too. You're like, I was just thinking of you and you called me. Or, I was in Mexico one time. It's a long story, but I saw this boat that had like my childhood nickname on the boat. And I was like, what are the chances that would happen? It's like the two-headed nickel Sally was talking about. Like, it's not a coincidence. It's more of a God incidence, but it's also part and parcel of the idea that you can have a thought that turns into an intention, into an action. Like you think, oh, if I ever have a baby boy, I'm going to name him Daniel. And then you do have a baby boy, and then you do name him Daniel, and it just all seems meant to be. So right now, I'm going to invite you to take this idea, this exercise that really, like I said, brought you here today, and turn something impossible in your life into something possible, because I think this is part of an extraordinary future. It's not waiting for the food shortages to come or waiting to see what, new variant they're going to make up with another letter from the Greek alphabet. It's like, it's kind of taking a vision and making it happen. And let me be clear. I agree with what Del was saying. I do agree that we need to be in the flow and follow God's vision for our lives, but I also believe that some things happen because we also take action, and that's part of his plan. If the door is closed, that means God didn't want it to happen. So I want you to think of something fairly impossible, and I'm going to tell you how we can turn that around and make it possible. And I'm going to tell you what I did just last month in an exercise along these lines. So I was with some friends at the beach, and I told them about a little impossible dream I have. It's not super impossible, but it's a little bit. So basically, I want to get a book out. Have you heard of Tim Ferriss's Tools of Titans? He took all the answers from his podcast guests and put them into this book. And I thought, hey, Sally said this is cool. I'm going to get the answers from the podcast guests, the one thing you can do to improve your health, and write a book. So I've been working on this. I've categorized the answers from the guests, and I'm, adding my own little anecdotes and ancestral sidebars. And I thought, okay, it can be like a holistic Hilda ancestral health handbook. This is going to be great, right? Well, 2 publishers have rejected it, and an agent. She said the health book market is saturated. And so knowing this, I decided to do this little exercise with some friends at the beach. And so what I did was I envisioned the book in people's hands, and I've written it down too, that it's something that's going to happen, because when you write it down, it becomes more concrete. And then I spoke of it as if it already had happened. It's a little by faith kind of exercise. So I told my friends at the beach, I knew I was going to go to this conference in Texas, and I said, I went to PaleoFX. Okay, this is what I said. It didn't really happen, but let me just say. I went to PaleoFX. Somebody heard me speak, and they said, we want to publish your book. And now it's been picked up by this publishing house, and it's going to be in everybody's hands. I'm so excited. This time next year, it's going to be in everyone's hands, and we're just going to all celebrate that this happened. And I'm so excited. It's changing people's lives, because I take these big ideas and translate them into bite-sized bits of applicable wisdom. So my friends are all happy for me. So then I go to PaleoFX. I did this last week. What do you think happened? Don't take it too far. Don't take it too far. This is what happened. I don't know if anybody heard me speak and decided they wanted to publish my book, but I went to the VIP speaker dinner, and I said to myself, I am not going to go try to horn in and be at the cool kids table with Ben Greenfield and Luke Story and all these people. I mean, they're my friends, but it's not like we hang out every week, So I'm not going to horn in on their table. I'm just going to sit somewhere and see what happens. So I sat down, and nobody sat with me. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to go sit near somebody that seems nice. And I saw this woman that I had seen earlier. She had curly hair. She had been at a workout session with Aaron Alexander from the Alignment podcast or something like that. So I went and sat next to her. We started chatting. She was a book agent. So I told her about my book. I don't know how sold she was on the idea, but I emailed her just a couple of days ago. But the cool thing is, I like that this story, in a way, I know, I was sad too, no, I'm just kidding. I have to be honest with you. I have been discouraged to be turned down by 2 publishers or an agent, right? But I'm not giving up, because this dream, I feel like it's bigger than me. It's not about me. It's for the betterment of the world. And this is an important key. So when you think of your impossible thing in just a moment, it can't just be like, I want a car. I mean, that's okay if you want a car, and maybe that can still happen, but it's better if it's something that's good for you, but also for the broader world. So I'm just telling you this story because it's still in process, and then you can cheer when the book does come out and be excited with me for that. But so think about something that's maybe slightly impossible. It doesn't have to be as big as a book, or it can just be as simple as like improving a relationship with a relative, or having backyard chickens, or something that you want. So think about that for a second. And if you want to, you can even write it down if you still have your index card and mechanical pencil. And I'll give you a second to think. And don't just think of the problem. Think of it as if it's already happened, the good thing that you want to see happen. Okay, you got it? Okay. Now I want to invite you, if you dare, to turn to your neighbor. This is an interactive moment. And tell them as if it's already happened. So don't be like, oh, my uncle and I, we never get along. We've been estranged for years. No, it's like, I have the best relationship with my uncle. I can hardly believe it, but we're planning to go to Mexico this May, and we just talk all the time. You see what I mean? Talk about it as if it's already happened, and then let them tell you their story. Okay, go. You can keep dreaming. It's kind of fun to dream this way, right? And to imagine it as if it's already happened. I heard someone saying, I established this community space where people can get together like this. Like, how beautiful. Or I imagine that, not even saying it like I imagined, but I established this community space. Or I got married and had 5 kids. Wonderful. What a surprise to your family that you're living with that doesn't know that that's happened yet. But yeah, so it's fun. And you can write this down and make it a prayer. Make it a prayer, because I do think God needs to be a part of the dream, if not the orchestrator of it. There's one of my favorite verses in the Bible that says that delight yourself in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. And I love the double entendre of that. He both puts the desire in your heart for that community center or that marriage or whatever it will be, and then he also can grant it for you. And sometimes the door is closed, and that's fine, because that just means it's time to go in a different direction. But I want to tell you, I will close with this story of a young woman who had a dream that was so much bigger than her own. She felt like God had given her clarity that she was to lead armies against an invading, conquering nation to defend her nation from these conquerors. But you all, she was only like 14 or 15 years old. She had no military training. Women weren't even allowed in battle. She had no resources, but she had the certainty that this is what God wanted for her life. So she made her way with this certainty, with the conviction and determination and character of leaning on God and not giving up. She ended up before authorities, political authorities of her time, that gave her horses and escorts, and she indeed led armies against conquering Britain. It was Joan of Arc who led the armies in France. And she said, I am not afraid. I was born to do this. And what gets me about that phrase is it was both a certainty but also a prayer, because you guys, she was afraid. She was afraid. And she faced opposition. Making dreams come true isn't easy. You're going to hit hardships. People thought she was crazy, and the church thought she was a heretic. They said, you're lying. God couldn't have given you these visions. And so at one point, she signed something that the church had kind of written up saying, I lied, it's not true, God didn't give me this vision. She signed it because she was afraid of the fire. She confessed. She signed it, and then almost immediately she recanted, but she didn't say, I lied that God gave me the vision. She said, I lied when I signed that paper because I was afraid of the fire. Yet she still persisted to say, I am not afraid. I was born to do this. And she did lead the French to overthrow the British. And whether your dream is that broad or much smaller, know that it can come true. And you can indeed have an extraordinary future. So now, as I close, I want us to review the 5 secrets for extraordinary health, and then I'm going to invite you to cheer with me the words of Joan of Arc if you dare. So let's stand up and we'll review the 5 secrets for extraordinary health. I'll see if I remember them first, and you can repeat after me. Feet on the ground, face to the sun, food that nourishes, freedom from fear, friendship. And now, I am not afraid. I was born to do this. Okay, one more time like you mean it. I am not afraid. I was born to do this. Yes, you were. Thank you so much for coming out today. Thank you.